Hello, I'm Ben. I had some time off from work, so I'm playing around with some magic data. And one of the thing, and I love Premodern. So one of the things I've been doing is looking at the metagame. I think Premodern's an interesting set of data to look at because it's a time capsule. No new cards are added to Premodern over time. And so, like, the analysis that we do of the metagame in any given period of time is only based on what players' preferences are, not based on new cards being added. I think it's another really interesting analysis. I just think that this one's has its own charm. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've done so far. This is in no way complete. This is just what I was able to complete in a few days off from work. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'm really interested in talking more about this and getting better at these analyses. So I needed somewhere to start. For the data, I am using largely just data that I was able to get off of TC Dex. As far as I know, that's the largest record of pre-modern decks, deck lists. And I got that. The only limitation there is that it is only the winning decks. So this is all decks that were in the top 8 or top 16 of some pre-modern tournament, which, you know, in some ways is interesting, and in some ways is limiting. But we're gonna go with it for now. And I started with goblins because it's been an archetype for years, and it's something that I think a lot of us are familiar with. So it'll, I think, resonate with a lot of the different people that might be interested in analyses. Okay, so to just start, let's take a quick look at all the cards and the likelihood or the probability of that card being played in one of the decks, right? So it's just the number of decks that play the card divided by the total number of goblin decks. And you can see that there's some stuff that's really, really, really common. That's on the top over here. This is the staples. Down here, there's things that are like really uncommon, but they were in a winning deck list. We'll call those spicy or chilies, whatever. This, I think, is an interesting area to explore. This is what I'm calling the land of intrigue. Quick aside, the first thing that I thought of when I started looking at this was, okay, so what cards is everyone playing? These are the 7 cards that are in every winning Goblin deck list. Gem Palm Incinerator, Goblin Lackey, Goblin War Chief, Siege Gang Commander, Goblin Pile Driver, Goblin Ringleader, and Mountain. I guess an honorary Goblin. Let's take a little deeper look into what we were just looking at. If you're interested in getting started with analysis, I love this tool. It's called Tableau. I've used it for years. It is a data visualization tool that was originally built by some of the co-founders of Pixar. This is data visualization through the lens of someone who's an expert in displaying rendering information, rendering digital things. Man, I wish I had started without having the different colors on the decks, but what you're seeing here is the same chart I showed you before, but I did some basic clustering. Roughly, say I had asked a computer program to categorize the different types of goblin decks, and they're colored by, there's 2 different types of green decks, there's 2 different types of red decks, and then there's 1 type of black deck. And the proportion that you see here, it represents, I guess, the proportion of the metagame. So there's a lot of black decks, and then there's a bunch of mono red decks and green decks. So the way this is right now is we can hover over this and we can see what those cards are. So here, these 7 bars are the ones that we just spoke about. So what's the next card that's like almost always in every deck? And that's Skirk Prospector. Apparently there's some winning deck lists that don't have it, but most winning deck lists include Skirk Prospector. Right, we're just looking at the staples right now. Goblin King. My first deck list did not include Goblin King, so something, maybe I want to change that up. Mog Fanatic, I think no surprises. I think what's surprising is some Goblin decks did not have that. Sharpshooter, Goblin Matron, Wasteland, and Pyroblast. Something to keep in mind is that this does not talk about the decisions made of like how many copies to include in the deck. This analysis is just, is the card in the deck or not? So maybe some of the green decks are skimping on copies of certain cards, but you know, it's there's definitely more analysis to do here, especially around like sideboard decisioning. I didn't pass that data through for various reasons. It's just a to do. This is just looking at the full 75. Okay, so like really spicy stuff. The Ruination, Reckless Abandon, Pulverize, Meltdown, Flash of Defiance. Players can block with green or white creatures this turn. That's cool. So if you click on this, you can see the deck list, which is kind of nice. Oh, this was an interesting one. It was playing an odd choice. So it had like ancient tombs, two ancient tombs, and a lot of mountains, and so it was playing Fireball. So maybe that's where like a lot of this stuff is coming from that particular deck. Not many played Null Rod. So, wow, somebody played Revenant's Disc. Maybe this is like this is one of those. This is weird. I don't know. This looks like it's way more towards being really aggressive. Interesting, because it's all based on. It's all permanents. All right, interesting. Okay, Pandemonium I thought was kind of cool. There's multiple decks that played Pandemonium. You have Mahalo. That actually sounds interesting to me. Anyway, let's go to like what's like in here, which is where a lot of decisions are being made. Pyrokinesis, Tormod's Crypt. If you want to play with this yourself, I'll publish this online so you can play around. And then the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is I labeled each of the decks using K-means clustering. And if so this is kind of what the clusters look like for reference. This isn't going to mean anything to any of you. It just means like how you can kind of use this to tell how similar the different decks are. So you can see like red goblins, those are kind of similar. They're quite different from green goblins, but not that different, to be fair. It's just all relative. And then black goblins is relatively different as well. And so where did I leave the analysis? There's lots of questions, as you see. I'm kind of picking them up. But one place where I'd like to leave off is something kind of interesting, which is this guy. So I took the two different green decks, and this is the difference in percentage of decks that play a particular card. So here, green deck 2 is 67% more likely to play Tormod's Crypt than green deck 1. This is just clustering. We're trying to understand how it drew the line between the two different clusters. And this is one of the things that was surprising was I'm surprised that there's green decks not playing Caller of the Claw. I think that card's really strong. And how do we like look at the difference between the two green decks? That's why I did this. So I want to see like what really differentiates one green deck from the other. And like the best I can tell is this deck seems more big and reactive. So it's more likely to play things like Phyrexian Furnace, Meltdown, Tranquil Domain, Overload, cards that react. Whereas this deck is more likely to play things like Sulfuric Vortex, I guess Meekstone, so maybe it's not but it's all things like Pyrostatic Pillar, and it's way more likely to play Lightning Bolt. So green deck 2 seems more like a proactive green deck. Green deck 1 seems more like a reactive green deck. But it's not cut and dry. So it's like an interesting differentiation that the K-means clustering came up with. There is a lot more analysis to do and a lot more cool stuff to do, so I encourage you, if you're interested, to reach out, and I'll talk to you guys later.